Start because we have a quorum. So welcome everyone to the Environmental Services Committee meeting for Tuesday the 27th of August. Just like to ask for any apologies. I have an apology for Councillor Burt. I'm not sure where he is today, but I've got his apology here. Any other apologies? Would someone like to move we accept the apologies? Thank you, Mayor Nigel. Seconder, Councillor Shannon. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Just like to welcome our community board members, Gay, Ross and Shane from Temuka, Pleasant Point and Geraldine. Welcome to all of you and thank you for taking time out of your day to come and join us today. We really appreciate it, so thank you. I haven't been made aware of any public forum, so I'm assuming there is none. Are there any items of an urgent business? No. Any items of matters of a minor nature? No? Okay, so any declarations or conflicts of interest this morning? No. Okay, so we'll move on to the Chairperson's report. So since our last meeting, on top of the normal duties of councillor, I have attended an OTOP field trip. So we went and visited some sites for potential funding, including a farm on the Ohapi Creek near Temuka and some areas around the lagoon areas at Pikunting Creek. That was a really good day out to see the projects that will potentially come to us for funding in person, so it was good. We had a workshop strategy session for councillors, a workshop considering the role of zone committees and what leadership in fresh water looks like for our region, and a workshop on the draft ECAN regional policy statement. Pleasant Point Community Board had a workshop for prioritising their next projects for their strategic plan. I attended online an ICONA webinar on funding infrastructure. Attended a meeting of coastal landowners with our local MP James Meager and two ECAN councillors on options for mitigation of coastal inundation. And I attended the local and regional council hui at the Arawhenua Marae. I also attended the Temuka Community Board meeting, but was an apology for the Pleasant Point one last week. I've actually got a copy I can see. Sorry. Are there any questions on any of that? If not, I'll move the adoption of my report. Thank you, Councillor Oliver, for seconding that. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't pull up my report. I just wanted to declare my conflict with the district plan report, hearing report update, just so it's on the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Scott. We'll note that. Thank you. Sorry, may have started the meeting a little bit before you were ready. Okay, we'll move to item 7.1, which is the confirmation of the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any omissions or corrections to the minutes as noted? If not, I'll ask that someone move these as a true and correct record of the meeting held on the 30th of July 2024. Thank you, Councillor Shannon. Seconded, Mayor Bowen. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move into the reports. We've just got two reports today. One's going to be a little bit interactive, seeking some feedback and guidance, and the second is just to receive a note report. So I'll ask Mr. Taylor to come forward and present the first report. If you note the purpose of this report at paragraphs 1 and 2, you'll see that Mr. Taylor's been working on a climate change action plan for us as requested, and he's just seeking direction on the work he's completed to date and what we might prioritise going forward. So over to you, Mr. Taylor. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. On climate issues, international concern is still growing, particularly in science, and there are fears that the global tipping points or possibly runaway temperatures may be reached. From my point of view as an officer of the council, I receive various different sets of messages depending on the scale. At an international level, there's a sense of alarm and urgency. At the national level, our coalition government appears to be reducing their concern since 2023, and so I have a sense of context of conflicting messages. Under current legislation, however, and published government guidelines, local government does have a duty to reduce or mitigate our contribution to emissions, and also to help the ratepayers and electors adapt to impacts of a warming climate. So the work that I've been undertaking in collaboration with a lot of our colleagues on the staff here is to produce the scope or the direction for a plan which we can put into action. So at this meeting, I'm seeking guidance from you, councillors, on that direction and your sense of priority within the options that we're generating. Decision-making on the adoption of a plan would be at a subsequent session, guided by your direction here. So we're doing decision-making in stages. This is to help a direction. Members of the public, of course, continue to lobby me because I'm visible to them. They often seek a wider focus than the in-house actions. They love to see the district council acting as a leader or a catalyst for businesses, for public utilities and the wider community, because that's where most of the emissions, for example, come from. The council contribution is about 1.5% of the district total emissions. However, in previous discussions, councillors, you've indicated priority in getting our own house in order first. So you'll find that the document you've got to look at focuses principally on our own work. Doesn't mean it's all we'll ever do, but it may well be our starting point. We have to back this an incomplete district strategy started in 2023, and we adopted council policy in February 24 to guide us. And I've tried to make consistency between what I produced here and that policy adopted in February. I've had very generous assistance from colleagues in other departments in the council. There's quite a lot of internal engagement here during the winter, mostly looking at those in-house operations and how we could influence the design of future projects, including construction and infrastructure projects. So we're looking initially at activity over the next 2 years prior to the production of the next long-term plan, but laying the ground and doing the homework and the preparation for work which will have a substantial impact within the long-term plan next time we go back to the public. So at this stage, our consultation is selective. And we're proposing that we do some consultation during September with a small number of invited organisations whose skill and experience could help us to do a good job. But we don't go to wider public consultation until we have documents such as the long-term plan or annual plans on which we would expect to do some consultation. I'm going to use a little bit of technology to help if I can in this session, because it gives all the councillors a chance to put their individual in addition to the discussion collectively. And for that, I'm using a system which has been used at quite a few conferences I've been to over the years. It's called Slido, S-L-I-D-O, and slido.com. So I wanted to invite you, if you have your smartphones available, to locate that service. And as you'll see on the note I've left on each of the desks, there's a reference number to put in, which identifies the particular polling that I'm doing. So this is an internal poll, it's not a public one, and it's a way of helping you to make that connection. If you don't want to use that, or your technology doesn't deliver for you, there's a paper version. And the sheet in front of you allows you to take part, and I'll make sure I include the views you've raised. So that's the consultation process. And what you're doing, in effect, when you click on your phone, is you're clicking to say, yes, this topic is one that deserves some attention. If you don't click it, then you're saying you're either unconvinced or you're not in favour of it. And it will give us your collective view on the areas which are of most interest for you. So what you're doing here is guiding myself and my colleagues to present our focus on the areas which have most interest for you. That'll be influenced by a consultation we do next month, and then we will be able to bring you more detail. Madam Chair.
I was just going to say, Mr Taylor, can we pause for 5 or 10 minutes or however long it takes for councillors just to ask some questions before we move into...
Absolutely.
Have you got more to add to your report, or are we okay to do that? That's
essentially it. It was just setting the basis on which I wanted to... So yes, I'll pause, and your questions and observations
Okay, so do we have any questions for Mr Taylor? I have a few myself, but I'll go to the floor first. Councillor Booth.
Is everything you've said factual, Reece, or have you just made that up? Because we can only deal with facts, okay? So just, there's no point, it's like you're building it all up, that it's going to be a huge catastrophe. All we know is what we know. And so what's the point of wasting money on a whole lot of stuff that isn't factual? We're basically told that sea level's going to rise by a certain amount, so we've actually changed some of the coastal lines we're allowed to build. Really, we can only really react to actually what we know in regards to, and that's not even factual. So,
If I may, Councillor Booth, I think the point of this is to be proactive rather than reactive, and putting ourselves in a position where when we do need to react, we are ready and ready to go. I am sure you can use the Slido to illustrate what you think is a priority and what you didn't. Although, to be fair, I did have some feedback on the report, Mr Taylor, which is a little bit not in agreement with Councillor Booth, but perhaps may help some of his. And I wonder where we start. There's a couple of things. Where we start with climate warming in a nutshell, if we even need that. If this was a paper on earthquake response, we probably wouldn't start with the definition of an earthquake and the science behind it. And I feel like as a community, we've matured and understand climate change far more. And so, and I feel like some of that may be causing Councillor Booth's reaction and other members of the community may be the same. And so I just even question if we need that bit in the front. But that's up to you, what you put in the end. And along that topic, actually, just one other point I wanted to make before I just go around for other questions is you start by saying that what council contribute, what we represent, being 1.5% of emissions, as the whole region. If you look at, sorry.
Within Timaru District, the calculation was done independently for Environment Canterbury, and is a published study, and it looks at each district's contribution across business sector, land use, transport, etc., households. And relative to that, the measured emissions for our council are 1.5% of that total.
But my point is that's still a huge amount, because you could say the same about New Zealand and its effect on the rest of the world. So it's still worth doing, worth getting council in order first, and then seeing how we can lead the rest of the community. And so I wouldn't, my point was to be supportive and say I wouldn't let that put you off, that you're thinking, or any of us, that this is just a small amount of the district. Any other questions? Councillor Piddington.
Understand where we're going, no problem at all, but I do have a problem in voting when, you know, the cost is not scoped. There may be some savings, no savings. I mean, I can't give you an answer, to be honest. You know, cycleways previously funded by NZTA, funding paused, so that means we have to pay. I actually need a scope of some sort of number, because my three choices might cost $20 million that we don't have. So I'm...
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr Taylor, but I think the point is to see where the interest is, to then go away and do the work and see what the cost is. Like, it's not making a firm commitment on this is what we're doing going forward. It's to give Mr Taylor some guidance on what areas he will focus on first. And I get your point, because I had the same question go through my mind yesterday when I was doing another read through, but we need some guidance of where to start, what to look at first and what's important.
Well, I mean, when I read it though, recently updated purchasing policy to encourage low embodied operational carbon approaches by contractors, which is great. You say you've already done it, yet the timing and the thing is mid-term. I mean, I just think the thing needs a tidy up a wee bit. I get your point, Michelle, but again, they must have some idea of savings in some of these things. Because again, I'm making a decision without any, I've been asked to rank them. So I am being asked to make a decision to rank them without any knowledge of the financial cost. And I'm not prepared to do that.
Madam Chair, I understand that perspective, and I think that the enemy of all decision-making within the council, if you're trying to work out policy and direction, is if you require everything to be costed before you've decided which are focus areas of concern, either in your reading with the public or in your opinion from your experience inside the council, you would generate a huge amount of work for the staff in assessing lots of possibilities hypothetically, and then be able to say a certain number of them are going to be dropped anyway because they were never your priority in terms of opinion. So, councillors, I'm urging you to identify, if you can, your areas of particular concern and focus so that the staff time can then be invested in costing out and working out the detail. I don't think it's fair on the staff, as a personal opinion, to expect every potential idea to be fully costed before you're willing to make a decision on it. It's not efficient. And if you're interested in cost efficiency, it's not cost efficient. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Shannon.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to be sure that, for example, when I read through your fully fleshed out scope here, that when you've shortened them to statements, for example, number 11, review energy efficiency at council premises, which I'm all for, reviewing energy efficiency, and then decarbonise it if where gas is still used. So by me agreeing that I'd like you to look into that, I just want to be clear, this is not agreeing to decarbonise where gas is being used, for example. It's just the exploration of that. And the same with each of these, where what is within your paper is well fleshed out, because within each point there are some that I would agree, yes, look into that, and there's some within each of those that I think, hell no, don't go near that. That by me agreeing to looking into something, that's not saying, yes, I want to do that.
I certainly welcome you qualifying your comments and feeding back those points of detail to me. Necessarily, we've tried to reduce the items on which we're consulting to a manageable number. I've also noticed a bit of a problem in the layout of the Slido sheet I've got here. I appear to make a jump from number 8 straight to number 13 in the electronic version. I've no idea where that's come from. I think it's that's right, it's the fact that people are already offering comments and they get reordered. Yep. So the way the software works is as people put in comments, they're resorted. That's going to be a bit frustrating, but that's
okay. So if councillors want to put comments on it, they can use the paper version and put some comments on it. I just have another question myself. I note you've put a section in there about the latest government planning, which I think is important. Will you in this report set out what we're doing already? So for example, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with the targets, but we have some biodiversity targets in the Waitara Lagoon project, that clearly meet some of these government points. And so because there is a lot we're doing already, so will you include what's already happening in your report?
To the best of my ability, Madam Chair, yes, certainly the new government is talking about favouring nature-based solutions, it's the phrase they're using, and there could well be some work along the coastline here which makes best use of the way nature operates alongside any engineering or technology approaches. So yes, that's an example where we be in congruence with current government policy.
Sorry, one last question for me, and I'll go back to the floor. Did you intend, or what is your view on consulting with the working group that spent many, many hours inputting into the draft strategy? What was your thinking on that?
I've raised that suggestion with the facilitator who we engaged as a contractor for that work in 22 and 23. He has quite a strong commitment to a community base for input to our work, but has argued that the advisory group that was set up was, in a proprietary sense, the group that he assembled for that purpose, and that working with them should be with his consent and involvement. So we've reached a little bit of an impasse there as to how we pursue working with that group of people.
Okay, that's disappointing. Councillor Piddington.
I get a bit sick of consultants, Reece, telling us what we will and won't do after they've finished their time with us. Surely you just invite them as council, you've got their names, and get on with it. That's what we've employed you to do.
I would tend to agree with that view. They're quite active members of the community that spend a lot of time putting some feedback into that and have a great interest in this area, and I think would be doing a disservice to that group if we didn't consult with them at some point on this report. Any other questions from the floor? Councillor Scott.
I just thank you, Reece, for your report, and I do think it is quite clear in here on page 3 of your report that any future actions would be new or differ from those available. You know, you will prepare the project descriptions, timetable and feasibility. So I've read that, so I'm happy to fill it out. I just wonder on page, sorry, just let me flick through. One of the areas, section B, it talks about climate warming impacts identified and projected for South Canterbury include, and there's a list there. And one of the areas, and I will declare my conflict of being involved with a community irrigation scheme that didn't go ahead many years ago, you talk about increasing need for water storage. And I just wonder, is there an opportunity to have a conversation with that particular group and see if there's any motivation to, you know, we talk about water storage all the time, and there's a gold-plated example out there of one that could happen. So I just wonder, instead of writing it on paper, are we actually having conversations with irrigation schemes that could help with water storage?
I've certainly not had conversations in this role. I had some previous contact in previous work with Environment Canterbury on water storage. If we are to face more frequent summer drought, then water storage for use, for example, in agriculture would be very important as a strategic direction. I've been guided up till now in the work here to only involve very limited contact with industry and commerce in this role because of the internal focus. But please voice your suggestions on this, and it may be possible for our thinking to include contact with, for example,
I'm happy to help
irrigation
initiate
projects.
those conversations, for sure.
It's really a matter of what, Madam Chair, what leadership or catalyst role you'd like us to play as a council. You know, is this something just for the commercial world to act on, or is it something where you'd like us to engage?
I think there was clear feedback from that group that at some point they would like to see council take a leadership role in this. I think our main focus in the short term, though, had to be getting our own house in order. Yeah.
You'll notice, Councillor Scott, that one of the suggestions is made is that we act as hosts of a forum for people in the wider business community and use our role as an elected body to, if you like, an even-handed role. To arrange such a forum. I'd certainly recommend that we go ahead and do that as part of this development of a plan of action.
I was personally, I'm supportive of that, so long as we're using local businesses that are doing great stuff, and there were some examples of them in the South Canterbury, the Community and Business Excellence Awards, and how we can utilise those businesses in our communities that are doing something different and are actually solving some of the issues that may not directly be related to climate change, but of course, if it's reducing rubbish in the landfill or whatever it's doing, it has an effect on climate change. Mr. Traynor.
I just wonder if we're sort of mixing up two things here. I wonder whether we should be having a discussion on how we get our own house in order with our 1% it is. And then the other discussion is how do we influence the community? And I think they are slightly different. I just wonder whether some of these scopes, Table A, scope of mitigation plan, whether officers via SLT should have a really good discussion on these and start working this up a bit more for this standing committee, so we come back and say, here are some of the things that we think are easy wins, and also here are some of the things we believe we probably should invest in. And the other part in terms of influence the community is probably a discussion for council or this standing committee to have separate to that. Because I start thinking about this paper's not actually telling us some of the cost benefits that we could get from some of the items that are mentioned here. And I think once you start doing that work, they sort of start naturally sorting themselves out, which ones you will do, which ones you won't do. And I just wonder whether we should actually do a bit more work with you, Reece, and actually work this up a bit more and bring it back. And it's a bit like what Councillor Piddington said. You guys need to be informed so that you can make those informed decisions. You know, one of the items is using solar. We have plenty of roof space. We've got probably an issue going on with energy. What is the real cost, and how can you get funding to do that to actually help reduce our costs, but also send a clear message to the community? Things like that need to be worked up and then brought back to you guys. Our vehicle fleet, we've got a report in the Infrastructure Committee. Maybe we've got to rework that to say, what are the real costs of going to electric away from hybrid? We don't really know that. I don't think we've done that work. So until we've done that work, we could prioritise the wrong things.
Thank you, Mr Trainer. Councillor Piddington.
Yeah, I agree with the Chief Executive. That was my kind of point. That there's some cost-benefit analysis to go in. And if you come to the motor vehicle fleet, I would have thought moving forward, all that sort of stuff's business as usual, and you bring us a paper saying this is the cost if you want to go electric, this is the cost if you want to put power banks in, because otherwise I agree, we could prioritise the wrong thing. And just one question on number 3, help promote diversification of more organic waste. I agree, to avoid landfill input and ocean emissions on your scoping. What is ocean emissions?
On that particular point, Madam Chair, we're talking there about particularly trade wastes as well as the final output from the Erangi treatment wastewater plant. We emit to the ocean waste which is still creating greenhouse gas emissions. So the final output.
I guess my point, Reece, is that's what I thought it was, but it doesn't sit naturally with the other two. I would have thought that would have been a separate...
Solid waste and liquid waste, yes, we could have 2 headings. And in a detailed report, we'd certainly separate them out. Again, it was just a case of trying to bring...
But if I don't understand what you're putting in front of me, it's hard to vote. I mean, I'd like detail. When you say ocean emissions, you're talking trade waste type scenarios. That's all my point is.
I still think it would be useful to have a scan through this, and if there's some clear things that we don't want processed, to say, because otherwise you'll spend a lot of time working up some ideas that we were never going to support anyway. So I still think there is some benefit for Mr Taylor and Mr Trainer and the SLT in filling out this form perhaps by the end of the day and giving it back to Mr Taylor on a yes, no, maybe, depends on cost, definitely not kind of steer, if you're comfortable doing that. Any other questions? Anything further that you wanted to add, Mr Taylor?
I'd certainly welcome councillors having a go. I think that the logical step on from there is for us to do a certain amount of cost-benefit analysis and detailed preparation. Yeah, that's the intention. That's why it's come to you at this formative stage, scoping, rather than as a finished piece of work.
Yep, no, I appreciate that, Councillor Piddington.
Just want to ensure too, all this community consultation, we're not going to get another consultant and you'll be doing it, Reece?
This is something we can do within our capacity, because we're going to select the people we go to ask for advice who have opportunity to advise us. So we know we're not talking about large consultancy spending.
Brilliant.
Just so we're clear on that, will you come back to us first with a reworked version before you consult with the community, or will you consult with the community like you are consulting with the SLT and councillors at this point? I'm not saying which one I prefer, but what was your intention there, just so we're clear?
My preference would be to add indication to the draft you've got here of anything that needs clarification so that confusions are not generated, and to note against it a preference within the councillors to make this a priority or not a priority. At that point, I would like to do some informal consultation. It's not a formal consultation process.
Okay, so is everyone happy with that? I'm happy with that, but is everyone happy with that? Or Councillor Jackson?
Just for a little bit of clarity, because all these things are great. So how many should we be choosing? I mean, I'd choose the whole lot.
Councillor, you'd be absolutely free to choose the whole lot, but we'd then have to give you advice on the consequence of choosing everything.
So how many do you want?
Everything at once. I'm trying not to put too much of like personal enthusiasms into what's being promoted for your consideration here. These are the topics that have come from good quality discussion in the office between leaders of teams. There's been very good contribution, and those team leaders have said, here's an area that I feel we can make a difference in. Here's where we could actually make an impact. So these are, to my colleagues, plausible areas of work. We won't probably be able to do them all simultaneously, and we certainly can't make them all change within 2 years, but it's for direction. So yes, if as a council you thought this is generally a good set of prospects for us.
3 or 4?
Then pick. No, I think we should be braver than that.
Okay.
I really think that this is already whittled down from a much larger list of ideas.
Through you, Madam Chair, some will be easier to do than others, so that has to be thought about as well. You know, which ones in here could be quick wins, and which ones actually are so complicated they're going to take years, you know.
Absolutely. I was going to try and wrap this up, but I've just got Mr Cooper and then me and Nigel, and then I will try and wrap this up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I just wanted to say we have a very limited resource, albeit it will be doubling shortly, in Reece here, and there is a limited amount of work that he can do. The scope of this is already huge. As you've seen, some of them will take years to achieve, but there could be something that's slow burning in the background. Other things will be low-hanging fruit that we can identify and hit that spot really early, and that would be useful to prioritise. This exercise was about trying to understand or get direction, not decisions, just so that we can focus our effort, because the scope is huge. And we have a finite resource, so we want to look in the right place and not go off down an alleyway where we could have been wasting weeks of work. The similar in civil defence, where I asked the team when I first arrived, let's prioritise the list of must-dos, and it was, I think we got into the 60s. So we then had to go away with 60 projects with 2 people and decide how we were going to prioritise that work. And through a matrix, we scored it down to picking top 5, and let's knock those off first. And I think this is that kind of exercise that we're trying to achieve here. I think we're just trying to get a priority or a sense of direction from the elected members of where they would like us to head, rather than decisions as such.
So again, through you, Madam Chair, if you prioritise some things, my expectation is Reece is not doing them all. So say you decide you're going to change you want to really look at the fleet. Well, that's Andrew's team. If you want to look at solar, that's Nicole's team. So we need to make sure that it's not all going on Reece. Because it's all of our business. It's like health and safety. It's all our business. Climate change is all our business.
It's an organisation-wide approach, and I have the challenge or the privilege of being someone who's trying to coordinate and encourage interest by colleagues, and that interest is growing very noticeably among the team. This is a good opportunity for us to do integrated work.
That's
and
great.
I feel I have the support of my manager and the chief executive to do that. It isn't just a solo task.
Thank you. Right, we're going to have one last comment from Mayor Bowen, and then we'll move to the resolutions.
Look, it's similar to a point made by Councillor Pillington, but we've got to be careful in regard to what this sets us up for in the future. If you look to the ocean emissions and wastewater plant emissions, you know, to improve those, it could be tens of millions of dollars, and that's the whole debate around what is affordable and what the country can and can't provide at the moment in infrastructure investment. So there will be some some things that New Zealand just can't do because we do not have the money to provide the infrastructure to that level. So I think we've just got to be real to what a decision and some guidance now. We've got a different council might be in our seats in a year's time, and there's a report that sits there that helps influence a direction when actually they wouldn't be fully informed on the consequences. So I just tread carefully on some of those things. Great in principle, but that is one of the biggest debate around water at the moment across the country, is the unaffordability of those change of standards.
Okay, on that cheery note, thank you, Mayor Bowen. We'll move to the recommendations. So if someone would like to move that the Environmental Services Committee, recommendation 1, 2 and 3, receive and note the scope of the Climate Change Response Action Plan, provide direction on the scope and authorises staff to commence the relevant external consultation in advance of presenting an updated plan for adoption in October. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Mayor Bowen. Anyone keen to second? Thank you, Councillor Scott. I'll put the resolution to the floor. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Mr Taylor.
Thank you. So if you wish to use the Slido or the sheet of paper, please let me have your feedback. Thank you.
Make sure you do. I encourage you to provide that feedback to Mr Taylor with appropriate comments if that's what you wish to do. Thank you. Okay, so we're just going to move on to report 8.2, which is a receive and note report. And so following on from what happens in the Community Services meeting, I thought it would be useful for councillors and the public to get a little bit of a look behind the curtain and what goes on in the Environmental Services group. So we have this report. It's not intended for a massive discussion, but more of just for information. So I'll ask Mr Cooper to talk to his report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. As Madam Chair mentioned, this has been requested to periodically be brought to the committee just as to give some insight into what happens in the group under the guise of business as usual. I did ask each of the unit managers to provide a couple of interesting points that they might want to share with elected members, which they have done so. So even though the report is authored by me and authorised by me, that's not entirely true. It's been a team effort, and I'd just invite any questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr Cooper. We'll go to Councillor Piddington.
On my favourite subject of money, Paul, 5.5 notes the number of resource consents. I'd be interested to know how many have done in-house and how many are done by consultants and the associated cost of those consultants, and what we're doing to bring that work back in-house, being that a consultant is at least double, if not more, of a person.
Yeah, about 30% more on average, I'd say, for a consultant. We're charging under this year, I think we're around the $180 an hour mark for internal officers, and it might be between sort of $220, $250, and sometimes quite similar fees for consultants that do that work. But I'll hand over to Alex, who's team leader consents, Alex Wakefield, and he can probably shed some more detail on that.
Thank you, Paul, and through the chair, I can speak to that question. As team leader, I know the current workloads and what's coming through as well, through consultation meetings, and I can tell you, anecdotally, we can look at the numbers to drill down into them, but I think this year at least 80% of consents have been done in-house. That's. Don't hold me to the number. We can drill down and give you the detail, but basically, most things are being done in-house. There are the ones that aren't done in-house are because a level of expertise is required, and in my experience, having the right people doing the job actually can lead to efficiency and lower cost. So the selection of people to do the work is not because we don't have anyone to do the work, it's rather, it's preferable in some cases to get someone else doing the work.
No disrespect, Alex, but that's a different story to what Mr Cooper told us last year, that we couldn't get people and we're getting a lot of work. And 80-20 is fine, but if the 20% cost half, I mean, again, I just want to know what this council, what we're doing and way to save monies, because last year I think I bought 2 or 3 things to Paul where a consultant wasn't actually doing what they were supposed to do. So, yeah, look, that's fine, but I'd just like to see some numbers beside it so we're aware of the numbers and the cost of consultants for your area.
Through the chair and to Paul, I would suggest that I can prepare something for you that will give you some numbers on, say, the last 6 months, because the last 6 months would be different to the 6 months before. So I'm speaking to you anecdotally on what I believe to be, what I feel is the current situation, which will be different from what you've heard previously.
That's my point though, Alex. If it does change, if we have the numbers beside it, we can see that change. And I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, but I just want to be aware of where consultants are, because I get told the story that we've got an ex-staff member working in Nelson that got the work through an ex-staff member working in Christchurch.
Right.
And so the chain goes round and round. And they didn't have confidence in the person in Nelson. So, you know, and in fact, we might have moved them on. Who knows? But you see where I'm coming from. I'd like to see some numbers to give me some confidence, because generally we're still not getting what we asked for in financial impacts of these papers. We get the once over lightly, which I don't want anymore.
Just to be clear, Councillor Piddington, are you happy for those numbers to be in the next iteration of this report, which we're thinking will be kind of...
Absolutely. I don't want people to go to work, but there must be some easy way to track every 3 months when this report comes.
Okay.
Subdivision consents, 99 decisions, 33 decided.
So
House.
Okay, so that's cool. So it doesn't need to be an action point, it's just for the next iteration of this report we include some...
Well, I think it does need to be an action point, because otherwise everyone will forget in 3 months' time.
So if we could just note that as an action point, that the next report includes some financial data, that would be great. Thank you. Councillor Shannon. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions, please. Mr Cooper, with regard to the district plan review, 4.2, so an application's been made to the Minister for a time extension. Feedback was received from staff at the Ministry for the Environment prior to lodgement of this request. Did they give you an indication at the time how successful that application would be?
They asked for further information, which we subsequently provided. The only comfort I could give to elected members would be that there have been quite a few extensions granted in the past, and none have been declined when they've been applied for. So hopefully that gives you some comfort. But we've provided all the information that's been requested, and hopefully that would give you some indication of where it might head.
Cool, thank you. And also, and this is actually more for the listeners who might be looking at the number of noise complaints in Temuka, just to confirm, even though we're setting all sorts of records there, it's fewer properties that are involved in this, right? So when you look at the numbers and how good we are at achieving noise complaints in Temuka, it's not a town-wide problem, as one might suggest reading this.
Are you asking me, Councillor, if Temuka's a problem? It has its moments, and I think last year it was a busy year, yeah.
But it was it's not a large number of properties we're talking about here, necessarily.
It's often the case that we have 2 or 3 problem properties that skew the statistics, if you like, yeah.
And that could well be the case in this instance?
It could well be the case, yeah.
I just wonder if there were bagpipes, but anyway, any other, Councillor Booth?
5.3, you're looking for a 0.5 full-time equivalent biodiversity officer. And it goes on to say that you are getting involved with the long-tailed bat working group. So is that something the council's normally involved in?
We're normally involved, thanks, Councillor Booth. We're normally involved in biodiversity issues. That is just an example of one. I don't think that's the reason for that role or the reason for us committing any particular resource to it. It's just something that that person, when they are recruited, could be involved in. It's just an example.
What are they going to do all day or half a day?
It's hoped that the 0.5 would working with other areas so that we get more value from that role than it would seem from being a 0.5, but I can't go into too much detail. We'll be recruiting in the next few weeks for that role, as we will with the compliance role. The compliance role will be 0.5 bylaws, 0.5 RMA compliance, so that those two will fit together quite nicely. But I think we'll get a better outcome for the community by having that role sat in planning, delivering those outcomes, because at the moment we've been relying on a contractor to deliver that for us for bylaws. I think if we bring it in-house in planning, then it fits quite nicely in that compliance perspective. From an enforcement specialist perspective, it sits quite nicely, those two halves together in planning, and it should deliver a better outcome for the community. Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Anything from the side of the table? We'll go Councillor Jackson, then I'll come back to you, Councillor Shannon.
I was expecting to see the dog control report in this. So what's happened with that?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. The dog control report is an annual report that we bring to Council before we send it to the Department of Internal Affairs each year. And it's prescribed in statute that we do that. I think we'll be bringing it to Council next meeting, I think. Yeah, and that'll have those annual statistics in there for you to have a look at.
So I can save my questions till then.
It's coming.
Cool.
Yeah.
Councillor Shannon.
Sorry, I did have one more question. 7.9, I was quite enthused by this, the change of bringing these functions into your building unit away from the customer services team and the records team in terms of handling those inquiries. And it's probably more a question for our Chief Executive. Did this highlight perhaps any other opportunities within the building and with other teams whereby a higher level of service actually could be achieved? Did it highlight any other opportunities there? Potential?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Councillor Shannon. This came about by a higher than usual burden on customer services, and it was delivering a lesser level of service to the community because obviously customer services weren't subject matter experts. So by them providing the FTE to the building unit, we were able to give a much better level of service, and they could speak directly to who was going to be delivering that service to the community. In terms of other things, I couldn't speak. It would be probably a question for the GM who has customer services under their stewardship, I believe. There could be other opportunities, but I couldn't speak beyond how this one came about.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I see we have the GM come to the table, so Beth, if you'd like to comment.
Sorry, could you please repeat the question?
I think Councillor Shannon was looking to see if there's any other opportunities where a move away from customer services and into the group may deliver a high level of service. The example in this report is around the building work.
Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor Shannon. Yes, so there has been obviously the FTE from the customer services moved over to support the administration for the building specifically. There has also been a move for animal control administration, so we had an extra FTE that's been moved over to that group as well to support their team for the exact same reasons that Mr Cooper already mentioned, which was they're subject matter experts and they're able to better manage those inquiries.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. If there's no more questions, I'll move to the recommendation, which is, bear with me, that the Environmental Services Group update report be received and noted. As someone would like to move that, Councillor Parker, thank you, and seconded Mayor Bowen, thank you very much. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Mr Taylor, you look like you want to say one more thing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The way that our online polling works, I need to put up a couple of items in sequence. Currently, if you've been looking at it, you'll find you're invited to offer comments on the mitigation ideas. In 5 minutes, I'm going to switch it across to the adaptation ideas, so you have another go at those, just in case you felt you were missing out on only looking at half of our material.
Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, so we have no urgent business, no minor nature matters and no public forum, so I will close the meeting and thank everyone for their time. 10:55, if that clock's right. Thank you.
Committee meeting today. If everyone's ready, we'll just wait for Councillor Scott. While we're waiting, I'd like to welcome the community board members, Gay, Ross and Shane over there today. Thanks for coming, taking the time out of your day. Just go. Okay, we'll go through the first parts. So apologies today, I have Councillor Burt. Is there any other apologies today? I'm happy to move those apologies, seconded by Mayor Bowen. All those in favour say aye. I don't believe there's anyone for the public forum today. Identifications of items of urgent business. No. Identifications of matters of minor nature. Councillor Piddington.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it should have sat with Environmental Services or this one, but I just wondered if the CE can update us regarding the soil types for Timaru. I've had soil types and the work going on behind the scenes in relation to earthquake-prone buildings. I've had a couple of people ask me what the drilling's going on and...
Yep. We'll probably can do that. There's a slot for it further down, isn't there? Item 10, so we'll just do it then if you like. So we'll just keep moving forward. Declarations of conflicts of interest. No. Chairperson's report. Councillor Parker, we'll just leave that one today. Yeah. Okay, if you have that. Yep. Confirmation of minutes for the infrastructure meeting held on the 30th of July 2024. Is there any corrections? Is someone to move that? Scott. Okay, Councillor Shannon and seconded by Councillor Pye. All those in favour say aye. Okay, the actions register, page 16. So there's a couple of things today. I think the fleet management one comes in the paper further down, so we might avoid that one at this stage, but we'll go to the first one, which is an update on Peel Forest landfill. And I think, Andrew, you gave us one last meeting, but have you got any updates apart from what's in the paper?
There has been one further development, and that is that our application to the Ministry of Environment for the Contaminated Sites Remediation Fund has been processed, and a recommendation has been made to the Minister. We don't know what that recommendation is at this stage, but we're expecting the Minister's decision in September regarding that. So I think that the recommendation has been made is positive.
Any further questions? Councillor Pye.
I had a question about your August update and saying that we now need a land use consent as well. So assumably that's applied for through Timaru District Council, and what is the process there, and do we need an independent commissioner to determine that, and what do you think the cost is?
The answer is yes, we do require land use consent from ourselves. It was, I guess, the application was submitted and assessed by a commissioner, and the decision was whether that should be limited notification or full public notification. The decision is it is limited notification, so confined to the residents of Denniston Road. But yeah, ECAN consent is going to be the same. So.
Excellent, thank you for that, Mr. Dixon. Any other questions at this stage about that one? No, so that will just remain on there at this stage, I think. And the other one was the vehicle fleet. There is a paper further on, so I'll just see if is there any questions that someone wants answered now, or we'll just wait for that paper further on. No, all good. I'm happy to move the action register as being noted. Oh, sorry, Councillor Pennington.
Yeah, Councillor Oliver, I just wondered whether chrome platers could be added back into an action register. We just seem to get annual updates that appear to be the same as what happened last year. And it's probably at risk in audit, but I'd like to see some exposure of it around the council table, exactly where we're at. And I kind of get a bit tired of we're waiting for ECAN.
Speak to that. You happy for that to go beyond? Oh, yeah, so Nicole, can you just quickly speak to that? Sorry. Oh, just add it? You just want to add it?
Just want it added.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Every 6 weeks we get an update of where it's at, being New Zealand's largest contaminated site.
Yeah, so we'll add that onto the action register. So everyone's happy with that being added to the action register, I take it? So we'll just receive and note the action register. I'm happy to move it. It's Captain Shannon. That sounds good, doesn't it? Moved by Councillor Shannon, and I'm happy to second it. So all those in favour say aye. Captain Shannon. Okay, so we'll go to page. I'll just get my thing. What page is it? 19. Page 19. Report 8.2. Temporary road closure applications. So I will get Susie to take us through that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll see there we have over a page and a half, or nearly a page and a half of road closures. That's just because of our change in process, so we've got a bit of catch up to make sure we can get them all advertised and approved in a timely manner. It should start slowing down after Christmas. Obviously, the next report will likely have all of your Santa parades and all those fun festivities that happen at that time of year. So don't see them being this big continuously. We're just on that catch-up round. So I will take the report as read, as there's quite a number of events in there. Probably the easiest way to look at it is actually the financial summary section, which shows it quite nicely as far as, if we go to end of page 22, start of 23, which is options and preferred options. That covers off the international market, Seafarers Service, Temuka Fire Brigade 150 Jubilee event, Geraldine Festivals, Alpine Soapbox Derby, and various roads for the New Zealand Silver Fern Rally and the Timaru Christmas Market. So as far as consultation goes, we have worked through the normal process. There was a wee error in last week's courier in regards to the Soapbox Derby, but that has been corrected this week, so it's of no concern. It will be corrected. Which then brings us to the funding and financial implications. So you'll see there that most of them have been assessed as a community event. It undertakes, some of those undertake that enabling role for the CBD, such as the international market, etc., and the Alpine Soapbox Derby. But there is obviously cost that is associated to that as well. So currently on track to expending the budget for this financial year, but yeah, we will look to do a review of what's still coming at us and costs, and we may need to get some further direction from this committee into what can be considered a community versus commercial event in the future. Any questions?
Thanks, Susie. I've just got one really quick question. Silver Fern Rally obviously has quite a number of road closures, and I look at the value of the road closures in the more urban areas. Will they be, is it the same cost for a road closure out on a shingle road as it is for something that's more urban and more in the centre of town?
Yeah, it depends on the extent. Usually the rural, especially where the rally goes, it's obviously unsealed, so it is lower traffic volumes, so there is less risk around those closures, so there's less TTM required, temporary traffic management required, but that is one that is a commercial event and isn't paid for by council. So yeah, we don't have their cost, but we also don't bear their cost.
Okay, cool, thanks. Councillor Jackson.
Just regarding the Temuka Volunteer Fire Brigade, how come they're paying for their own when they could actually, because they're a community organisation, aren't they? So why are they paying for their own? There's money in the budget, isn't there?
Yes, correct.
But why have they chosen to do their own?
I'm unsure why they've chosen, but yeah, they haven't.
Okay.
Yeah, haven't.
I could possibly answer that actually. They started the process, and the people that they are using, I understand, are looking after them. If you know what I mean.
Okay. Any other questions? Mayor Bowen.
Look, this is good that this is actually in the public now. But I think there's a couple of examples that we should probably share with the likes of look at Seafarers Service and on part of that every year, and the cost. I think they should just know that there's a $2,500 cost, because we're on the road for a matter of 15 minutes, and the question's begged whether it's value for money or actually it can't be managed in another way whereby people stand on the footpaths, etc. Yeah, I just think that's ridiculous for this short amount of time, and it's obviously a standard fee, that 2135. So if we can look to proactively share it with these groups, they can have some consideration whether it's worthy or not, and I'll pick that one specifically up with them as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. And yes, certainly we'll be letting them know that there is cost involved. And obviously, as we are taking this, like say, in the public forum, and it's coming to the committee for a decision, there probably will be hard conversations in the future of what events will be funded and aren't funded. So we are, as it's been a new change in process, we're getting them used to filling in new forms, following the comms plan templates, so we actually have better communications going out to the other affected parties, and that will be a progressive, step improvement. So certainly we can let them know cost involved with each of the implementations of the TMPs.
I think it's also important to note that we're still working under the current code of practice for temporary traffic management, but the new code of practice, which is a more of a risk-based code, I think, has an opportunity to reduce those costs as well. Yeah.
Councillor Pye.
Thank you. Susie, I just wonder if in future reports we can have some visibility over what may be to come. I worry that we approve all of these things and then get to the end and we've got no more money and have to say no to something that we wouldn't choose to say no to. And I know it's a little bit crystal ball gazing, but you must know the regulars, and just, you don't have to name them all, but you could just put a dollar amount on what is projected still to come, please.
Yes, no, absolutely. That's part of our review plan. Certainly, we want to make sure that the likes of our Anzac parades, those real community events, still get funded, and it may mean some harder conversations with some of the organisations that use suppliers to prepare their days. If they're charging entry fees or costs to enter, then it may result in a change of process from community to commercial event.
Just one other question, Susie. When the contractor gets approval to go and do this work, do we actually go and price it up, or do we just give it to one person and they just do the whole lot for the council, because they do generally the whole lot for the council, or is it priced up?
We're currently looking into that as well, Mr Chair, looking at where we can make some cost savings. So historically, the provider that we have been using has been the cheapest, but we're going to test the market again with another couple of upcoming events, not the ones that are listed in here, but the ones that we're coming up towards Christmas. So yeah, we certainly are looking at where there is cost savings that can be made.
Excellent. Thank you, Susie, for your report. Is there any other questions from the council? The council is happy that we just do them all in one block, or do you want to go through them all individually? One block? Okay. That's moved by Mayor Bowen. We've got a seconder, seconded by Councillor Jackson. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. So we'll now go to report 8.3, the Te Miru District Council vehicle fleet, and we shall have Mr Dixon talk to that one.
Thank you, Chair. This report has been best presented in relation to one of the key actions that was noted earlier. It was a difficult one to understand exactly what was required here, and we did do some consultation with the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Infrastructure Committee and what is required. So this report has been tailored around that. If there is further information, we may be able to provide that. But it was really just a stock take of what the fleet is, what the type of fuel usage we have in our fleet, and the fact that we're moving to more environmentally friendly type vehicles. So we are focusing on hybrids initially. We do not have charging facilities here at the council offices, but we are, I guess, exploring that option, and there is a possibility of overnight charging for electric vehicles. But as far as fast chargers are concerned, as you'll probably be aware, there is no insufficient energy supply in Te Miru CBD for that. So we're looking at the overnight, and particularly with pull vehicles, they can charge overnight and be used for short trips by council officers. So yeah, we, as an organisation, we have a high level of mobility required. We have 1,700 kilometres of road out there. We have a number of townships, and we have to still go out and inspect things. Unfortunately, it's a dream of mine, but we'd have drones on the roof, and you could just send the drone out to inspect the job and come back again. It would save a lot of money in the long run, but we don't have that technology available just at the moment. But you never know, we might be getting there. I've tried to give you a little bit of the costs of the fleet, and there's your fuel insurance and vehicle tracking system that we have. We do track the vehicles, we do know where they're going, and that is for basically health and safety more than anything else, because we have vehicles that go into very remote areas. So we do need to know where they are and when they come out in particular. So this is very much safety related. We are reviewing our fleet, we are trying to reduce it, and as you can see, last year we only purchased 8 vehicles and disposed of 14, so that is reducing the fleet. This year I am intending to reduce the fleet again, and perhaps more vehicles into the pool, better utilisation. So we are constantly looking at that. We have, through the tracking system, we do look at vehicle utilisation numbers, and yeah, so trying to rationalise the fleet as much as we can. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Paddington.
Thanks, Andrew. That gives a holistic use, but I guess we're trying to make savings in this organisation. I would have wanted to see a more robust report. Can more cars be pulled? 8 vehicles purchased, 14 sold. that's in a year. I want to know that we are actually driving that. Your tracking system, does that include proper use? I'm not suggesting they're not. How much FBT do we pay? What are the vehicles? How many are personally assigned? We've got 3 more group managers. I want to know whether they've all got a car assigned to them. I actually want a rigorous report on what's happening. This is a great overview, but it doesn't tell me anything. I don't know whether fuel went down from last year or the year before, or it went up. Same with insurances. How are we doing it? Do we review it? So I'd just like to see a much more substantial report.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Pye.
I just have a couple of specific questions. First of all, around the vehicle tracking. Do you use that to claim off-road road users if appropriate? With your diesel vehicles that are going off-road?
The answer is no, because there's not a lot of off-road.
But my understanding is it happens automatically and you can set up, so it happens automatically and you'll get your road users back for any off-road use. But I actually question even having that vehicle tracking, if it's purely for health and safety, wouldn't an EPIRB be a whole lot cheaper, which is what a lot of people use for lone workers, rather than tracking their vehicle, actually having something on you personally that you can set off if you're in trouble. And I wonder if that would be a more cost-efficient way of meeting that health and safety need. Don't need to answer that, food for thought. The other question I had was around insurance, and I wasn't at the last audit and risk meeting because I was away, but at what point do we look at self-insuring? Because $74,000 a year for car insurance is effectively, we can afford to write off one vehicle a year and still be winning. And I think, how many vehicles have we actually written off in your time? I would suspect very little. And so at what point do we actually look at our insurance and look at self-insuring, or having third party only? Again, don't need to answer me right now, but food for thought.
I'll just make a comment on that. That is something that I have raised in the past, and I do support the idea of self-insurance. We actually talked to our insurance brokers over that at one stage, and their response was that when you do self-insurance, you also have all the hassle when it comes to claims around vehicles, particularly where you've got other vehicles involved. So it's a bit of a service they offer. But I would say that, the major damage that we've had in insurance was actually the hail event, and a number of vehicles were written off during that time, and very expensive repairs. So I think that event alone would have put us in the red.
For how many years though?
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to do that analysis, but
Okay.
But it's certainly, self-insurance is an option, particularly in an organisation of this size. And
Just had a couple of other questions, if I may. You talk at point 4 and somewhere else, point 8, about council policy requires vehicles. Is that a formal policy, or is that just council practice, or who determines this policy and how does that work?
It's 3 years, Chair. It is actually a formal policy, although we are not complying with it, I have to say that, because we can't afford to replace those vehicles at that sort of frequency. So I do have a number of vehicles that are more than 5 years old, in fact, and also over 100,000 K, but still in use. So we do assess it. If the vehicle's in a good condition, there's no need to really replace it at that point, just because it's reached that threshold. And we are very conscious of our climate change with the carbon. That buying a new vehicle, there's a significant amount of embodied carbon in that. So the longer you keep a vehicle, the lower the carbon footprint.
Any other questions, Councillor Pye? Councillor Booth.
Just perhaps an idea of the capital value of the fleet, but also have there been changes in the policy in regards to, I understand we own them now, did we actually lease them prior, or has there been some recent, within the last 4 or 5 years, changes in that how we've handled our vehicles?
3 years, Chair. There has been, the was a change in policy quite a number of years ago. I'd have to go back, say, about 6 or 7 years ago. We used to lease the executive vehicles, so to speak, which was the ones that were for private use. But we no longer do that. We purchase those vehicles. We did a cost analysis on that, and it proved that it was cheaper to actually own those vehicles.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you. Just the other operational cost of nearly 90,000. Can you tease that out for me a little bit? What's that money spent on?
That's basically the maintenance of the vehicles. Yeah, maintenance, tyres, also includes registrations.
Okay, any further questions? One more question, Councillor Powell.
I just wanted to understand how your policy around buying vehicles and the all of government contracts, how that interacts with our procurement policy, and does that mean we're buying local, or which one supersedes the other, or how does that all fit together?
Okay, it does comply with our policy, and no doubt about that. We buy through all of government. We buy directly off the vehicle manufacturers, and we ordered them, and they are delivered from overseas factories and delivered to us. They go through a local agent. That local agent gets a commission for handling that vehicle. But yeah, there is significant savings for council buying through all of government.
Thank you, everyone, on this one. Any further questions? No. So the recommendation is that the Timaru District Council Vehicle Fleet Report be received and noted, and also that this item on the action register be closed. Is everyone happy to?
No, I'm not happy that it's closed, because Michelle's questions, Alan's questions, my questions all haven't been answered. So can we actually have those questions answered and actually see what vehicles we own? You know, are we seriously looking at putting power in? You know, all those questions need to be answered. Don't want to hear about them in retrospect.
It would be nice to have some clear guidelines on what is you're wanting there.
Well, I'm happy to email them later to you, Andrew, and I'm sure Michelle, Alan, Sally, we just want an oversight of actually what we're doing with vehicles.
So at this stage, we will receive and note the report, but we obviously have agreed to keep it on the action register at this stage. So is someone happy to move that? Councillor Pye, seconder. Councillor Scott. All those in favour say aye. Right, we'll now go to page 51, I think it is, for the key infrastructure updates. We can just run through these quickly if you like. If anyone's got any questions, just raise your hand, okay? So the first one is the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. So Andrew Lester's going to speak to that, I believe.
Yes, the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, there is a significant number of capital projects happening there to go through, triggered by the H2S event last year to go through, which highlighted a lot of areas that equipment that was end of life going through. So there's, as you can see through here, there's a lot of moving parts to this project to go through. So happy to take any questions on that.
Any questions on that one? Councillor Shannon.
Thank you. A general comment, this is actually very interesting to read. I would like to see some costs beside each of those particular projects. Just with regards to contract 2674, electrical and industrial contract, that it says that it is now outdated and needs to be replaced, as in everything there is no longer going to work, or everything needs to be replaced, or what's the story with that one?
So along with the industrial, electrical, the MCC units and etc., all of that equipment there, it's at the end of its design life going through. It's also at a point where support is no longer available. So also tied into that is the control system, the software that runs the plant. Support for that will end within a couple of years to go through, so we need to get in front of it before actually the support disappears from it. So we need to renew it, go through and make sure we continue to operate right through. We can't run it through, let it fail and then go, oops.
Okay, so it's terminal really, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, I get that then.
Yep.
And just with 2672, ventilation, amenities, roof access, how often is it actually accessed? I'm just thinking about how essential this particular job is.
So the filters that'll go on there, so this is for improving the equality in the amenities area, so that's the office space, the lunchrooms, etc. The filters will need to be done around every 3 to 6 months, depending on the loading that goes in. So instead of scaffolding up each time you need to go through, putting an actual roof access point in is a permanent solution. We did look at trying to put the equipment down on the ground, but from the cost benefit analysis, going down there owed a whole heap of extra costs because it's not up in the clean air.
So that would be more expensive than doing this, installing new rails and walkways for something that's only accessed potentially once every 3 to 6 months. There's not a safe way of doing this without having to spend all of that?
You're going to have to go with the temporary scaffolding, etc., which the OPEX cost will just start to skyrocket out to meet all the health and safety requirements about going onto the roof and working from heights. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Shannon. Any other questions on that upgrade? Because we'll move to the next one. No, so we'll move to the C-down water trunk main upgrade. Andrew, please.
So C-down trunk main, it's progressing well. It's to schedule on, we've had claims for materials come through and everything on running as expected. Later on we will, we've started communications with the landowners in the area, which we'll be going through, and we'll increase that communication and go through as we start to bring them on to the new trunk main.
Thank you, Andrew. We'll move to the next one, which is the Douglas Street sewer upgrade.
So Douglas Street sewer upgrade, we did have some delays with getting traffic management approvals to go through. A lot of that came down to resources and people changing roles, etc. So we've resourced that, prepared the plan, is now working for us, so can't approve that plan. So there's a bit of juggling around in the resources. So there's been a delay on that, but we should be on track to have break ground next week.
Councillor Pillington.
When we have trouble with traffic management, there's no additional cost to us through the contractor being told to start on X day?
We don't have any additional on that.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Parker.
Just on the project risks regarding, it says the risk of disruption to normal traffic, Douglas Street, particularly in the vicinity of Park Lane and the roundabout, may lead to delays. Can you tease it out for me, please?
It just comes down to, on the traffic management side going through, it's just if the stuff comes up that wasn't expected to go through, the delays, if we start to run into some more customer complaints, etc., where we have to adapt that plan. But I don't foresee that coming through, especially with how robust would be one word to describe the process as being getting the traffic management plan in place. Yep.
Any further questions? Right, I'm happy to move to receive another infrastructure group key project updates. Have I got a seconder for that? Councillor Pye. All those in favour say aye. Aye, thank you. There's no consideration of urgent business items, but there was one from Councillor Piddington for the CE around soils and earthquake-prone buildings, I believe.
So we've had a report completed by the City Town people that are advocating that the soil class of which our assessments of buildings is based on should be B. The reports we've had our own buildings, the engineers that have done those reports have classified the soil as D or C. And so therefore there's an inconsistency there. Now the reports, they do state it is conservative, being D or C, and those have come from when we've done our own buildings, we've drilled, but we haven't drilled below the basalt. So we are now looking to actually work that up and get a categorical decision from a number of engineers working together to get that soil graded. Now, the issue is you've got the soil layer, you've got the basalt, and then you have gravel, for want of a better word.
A tightly bound clay and gravel. It's a conglomerate. It's quite hard. It's called Kennington gravels. Yeah.
And that's the one we want to get to work out how solid is that.
Yeah. What we need to do is actually do some thorough testing, and we had a meeting yesterday regarding that and determining a site. So what they're going to do is a shear wave testing, which measures, you basically create a mini earthquake and measure the shear wave through there, and how much energy is absorbed through those soils. And it's the Kennington gravels underneath is the bit we're most interested in. So it's going to be a couple of very deep boreholes, and then we'll enact the shear wave. Both engineers agree that that would provide a definitive answer.
And the site for that will be the library, the car park and the library. The reason for that is we want to be as close to the CBD as possible, and that's the one we've selected. Well, they've selected really, haven't they?
You know, sounds great. Do we have a time frame? Because, you know, this impacts people's earthquake assessments, those that are 34 below or above, the change of soil type could give you a 10% lift, which means you don't have to do the work. So do we have a time frame on this being delivered? And what is the process to agree? Like, we get a report back, does it come to council? You know, how do we shout from the rooftops if it's a win?
So we've got two different firms of engineers working together, plus the information will be assessed by one of the engineers sends their work to California, they'll be looking at it, and also Canterbury University will have access to it as well. So there's plenty of people. The biggest thing we're waiting on is getting a drilling rig here, which is 6 weeks? Yeah, about 6 weeks away.
So how long after that? Is it a year? Is it 6 months?
Oh no, it's months. 4 weeks after that.
So 3 odd months we will have a result. And when that's... So I just want to tease this process out so I understand. So we get a result and say it's favourable at B. What's the process of telling everyone it's B and that's acceptable? Does it have to go to individual insurers? Does it, you know...
No. Okay, the process will be around, we will release our findings to the public. It is still up to each individual engineer who does the actual assessment to make the call of what soil classification they will use. So, but given the data that we're going to provide, I think it will give people more surety. They won't be saying, is it C, is it D, or I'll go for the most conservative way. They'll aim for the higher one. So.
You need to come to one of their meetings, Councillor Piddington, because you wouldn't understand a word of it.
That's why I'm asking you. I'm taking a shortcut. Thank you.
Thank you. So we shall now, there was no public forum items requiring consideration, so we'll just now move in.
Just through you, Mr Chair, this is a really important piece of work. Admittedly, it's unbudgeted, but it's too important not to do.
Just on that, I wonder whether we should make a release that we're doing it, because it seems to me certain people know we're doing it, or while others don't, so it's a positive step, isn't it? We'll know one way or the other.
I'll just say something there, Gav. It comes down to the engineer doing the job as to what he selects, he bases his report upon. So our local guy's basing it on B, and we've been allowing him to base his decisions on that, and people from out of town are basing it on C and D. So it still ultimately comes down to what the engineer says, and what happens if we come out and it's C and D, this task we're doing now, will we accept our local engineers' report saying it's...
Well, our local engineers for own buildings have said it's D. So effectively it's not a rule of thumb where they're from. So they've done their work. Our buildings were done because we did drill, but we didn't go beyond the basalt. So that's why they conservatively went C or D. If it comes up at B, then they'll get reworked. Our reports will get reworked for our own buildings, which should lift their score. I can't talk about all the different private people, what they've done. So effectively, they'll know that we have evidence that we believe is B. They may ask their engineers to rework.
Councillor Brennan.
Final question, how far down are we going? Just so, it's bound to be a question that someone will ask me.
We're going down about 60 metres.
Well, that was a great discussion. We all happy with the outcomes? It was a good discussion actually. Learned a lot from that. So, yep, good discussion. So we'll move on. Public forum items requiring consideration. We don't have any. So we'll now move to public excluded. I'm happy to move that. Have I got a seconder? Mia Bowen. All those in favour say aye. So we'll now move to public excluded.
We will get started. Welcome to Community Services Committee meeting today, Tuesday, 27th of August. We have received an apology from Peter Burt. I'm not quite sure what the apology is. Work commitments? Nobody knows? Watching the tennis. Okay, nice. Okay, well, I will move acceptance of that apology. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Mayor Nigel. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Warm welcome to Gay, Ross and Shane from our community boards, Tamuka, Pleasant Point and Geraldine. Thank you for coming along today. So we have no public forum today. Identification of items of urgent business. None. Matters of minor nature. None. Okay. Declarations of conflicts of interest. Do we have any today, team? No. Great. Chairperson's report. I attended the strategic session for elected members, various workshops during the month, citizenship ceremony, council meetings, and I was honoured to attend the Business and Community Excellence Awards a couple of Friday nights ago. It was an excellent evening to celebrate success of businesses in our district. So it was great to be part of that on behalf of the council. So I'd like to move my chair's report. Thank you, Councillor Pye. Seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay, moving to confirmation of minutes held 30th of July. Councillor Pye.
I just don't agree with the resolution that I moved at 8.2. So that's not what the resolution in the meeting papers read, because I don't think I would have resolved to spend unbudgeted expenditure. The meeting papers, the resolution was approves the use of reserve funds from the Agantire refurbishment project for the installation of the HVAC system in the main gallery and for the installation of the multi-floor lift and accessible toilets, and I was happy to move that at the meeting, but would like the minutes changed to reflect that, please.
Yes. Thank you. Yep, we'll get that updated. Okay, so with regards to noting those changes, is everyone else comfortable that they're a true and correct record? Councillor Parker, are you happy to move those? Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Mayor Nigel. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. We will move to reports. Action Register 8.1. We just have the one on there, which we will be talking about today. So I think we just receive and note the updates to the action register, and that we will be talking about that particular action today. Oh yes, Councillor Pye.
Sorry, just on this action, I think the intention, and I could be wrong, was that we were talking about the wider gifts to the community, not just the art gallery. Right. And so what about the library, and probably doesn't get many, but the museum must get a lot of items gifted to them, and perhaps we didn't make that clear that was the intention.
If I may, through you, Madam Chair, the request specifically came as part of the art gallery report, so my interpretation of that was that it was specific to that, and the request was around the bequest policy relating to the art gallery. If you'd like more information relating to all of our facilities, that would be a different report.
Well, I think that was the intention. I accept we probably didn't make that clear, because at the same time we were talking about requesting the museum and making sure that they were specific to South Canterbury and things like that was kind of the general conversation that I recall. But I mean, does the museum have a similar policy, or is it totally different? Or
Yes, we do have a policy for the museum as well. A lot of that will follow the similar sort of ethics associated with the museum's Aotearoa, but they have their own policy. Would you like an update on that one as well?
Well, yep. It's just to get an understanding. Well, I mean, it will come through when we talk about the art gallery one, but I just don't understand how we can just keep, and I know it's a fine balance, keep accepting everything, and there's problems at the museum as well, as my understanding, when we don't have storage for them, and how we deal with that, or how we plan for future storage needs, because the collection's just going to grow and grow and grow and grow. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, or perhaps maybe, I did see Mr Howe here before, perhaps he could just talk to it when we look at the art gallery paper today and then decide later whether we want further information.
We can do that, yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
I see the report code of ethics and professional practices for
Sorry, Booty, can you speak up, mate?
but art gallery as well. It's art and museum, the ethics. That's what I was just going to say.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yep, okay.
Bear it up once we get to report 8.4. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yep,
okay,
thank you.
so we've received and noted that, I think. Yes, we have. So moving to report 8.2, Community Services Group Update Report. I'll hand over to you, Beth.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Madam Chair. Again, this is the standard group update for the Community Services Group, which we provide every standing committee. I will take the report as read. I do have my unit managers on site and available to answer any specific questions to the updates that you have been provided. Happy to hand over.
Just had one question, and I don't know the answer. It's specifically around the Pleasant Point swimming pool. I see we're recruiting for staff, but weren't we getting a report back because the average swim across Geraldine, Temuka and Sea Bay was $22 and the average swim cost at Pleasant Point was triple that, and there was also some capital to be spent. So where did we get to that? Because again, financially, we just can't keep pouring money into something that, you know, isn't working. And I'm not sure, someone said it was going to the Pleasant Point Community Board, but where did we get to? It just seems to be got lost.
Through you, Madam Chair. During the LTP deliberations, a feasibility study on the Pleasant Point pool specifically was proposed, and that was approved through the LTP by elected members. In the June standing committee, we spoke about this again. Elected members then instructed myself to make sure that all community pools were included in that feasibility study. So as per those instructions, that feasibility will be, that study, will be planned for 2025.
So the study, why does it have to be next year?
It's simply due to resourcing at the moment.
So we're not spending any, I don't want to be in this place where we spend capital of any significant amount and then make a decision, whatever the decision is. I just want to make sure we're getting this stuff in the right order. So there's no big capital spend on maintenance or anything happening at any of those pools before that decision comes out.
Through you, Madam Chair, there is no planned significant maintenance other than your standard pre-opening maintenance. There's been no papers that have proposed that either. At this stage, it is just normal operations.
Just a quick question regarding the recruitment at the pools. Great to see that it's happening pretty early and good to see that we're being proactive around that. Just wondering, going forward, is there an opportunity to have some volunteers that go through the course, get the qualifications, and then become available to fill in gaps where someone's sick or someone's away or whatever? Is there any... Because, I mean, we've got to get this right. We've been going on about it for a long time, and I'm just trying to look for some sort of solution that if we had 5 or 10 volunteers in small towns that don't want to be a paid employee but happy to come along and just be there if they had the right qualifications.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So we've had the same kind of conversation for the last few years around the recruitment and the challenges that we face for the pool specifically. So as a general rule, we don't accept volunteers. We are more than happy to pay and put through the training and recruitment process anybody who would like to join the pool of casual lifeguards. We do have requirements that they need to have 2 lifeguards on shift as per the pool safe requirements. So we are accredited, we have to maintain those standards. We are more than happy to recruit far and wide and take on new volunteers. Every year that we've had this issue where we might be facing early closures, however, we've not had uptake. So we'll continue to recruit. We'll have ongoing recruitment throughout the season as well, particularly as we come towards Waitangi weekend. But I need to let people know that as well that if we don't have enough staff to staff the pools as per the minimum requirements, we may need to look at potential early closures.
Okay, that sort of hasn't really answered my question, but I guess for me, I see people down there, users of the pool, that might be someone there that doesn't want to be a paid employee, but might be the swimming coach. He can swim probably 3 miles. He's probably got a first aid commitment, but he could be there to be that lifeguard, and that might mean that you might only need one during the time that they're using the pool. And he might be voluntary. He probably doesn't want to be paid, but he'll be there and he can do all the work that's required if someone gets into danger. So I'm just wondering how we co-opt people as a lifeguard, as a volunteer, to fill some gaps maybe, that's all.
Probably your biggest incentive, Councillor Oliver, would be to pay them. And as I said, we're more than happy to do that. If they have completed all of the pool safe training requirements and are able to step up, then we're more than happy to take them on, for example, your swim coach, but they would have had to have completed at least the minimum health and safety requirements and training.
Thank you.
This one's to the CE. I've just sat there and thought about it. 2025's 12 months. It can't be that hard to get pool usage in those stats. Why are we waiting 6 months, Mr. Trainer, for that report? It just seems incredible.
Yeah, I'll have that discussion with Beth. We'll go through that.
And on that note, I can confirm that in the April meeting you were provided with stats for the summer period for the 2022 season, 2023 and 2024. If you'd like them again, I'm more than happy to send them. We will also be collecting stats over this summer period as well.
Look, I don't want to get a bun fight, but you're missing the point.
I think the question was getting the review done, so we'll have a conversation. It sounds like the councillors want it done sooner rather than later.
Just wanted to ask about the South Canterbury Museum, points 14 and 15. So I see the South Canterbury Museum Development Trust have to return the $200,000 grant issued by the Community Trust of Mid and South Canterbury, which is unfortunate for them to have to do that. But it says in point 15, the museum will continue communicating with the rest of the donors as new direction develops. So what's our sort of timeline on that as far as giving direction on that? Sorry, Phil.
Through you, Madam Chair. The Museum Development Trust, which is a separate charitable trust, had developed about $600,000 worth of funding over the last 2 years. The Trust has now communicated with most significant donors, and that by significant I mean $1,000 plus in terms of grants and donations. And we are receiving feedback on the donors' wishes, given the current state of uncertainty about the application of the funds that were raised. I think I can speak on behalf of the Trust to say that any funding that has been received and which donors are happy for us to retain will be ring-fenced for a future similar development when the opportunity arises. Thank you.
Thank you. Just regarding these hublets at Timaru District Libraries, I'm quite interested in this. These are obviously for primary school kids and below, is that correct? And effectively it's an in-house iPad, is it, where you're just looking at all of, they can browse the kids' stuff. Now, looking at those numbers and how quickly they grew to 78 total borrows per day, is this something that's perhaps been looked at for satellite libraries and that as well, or are they already out in those? And is it a precursor to something more for adults and high school kids, etc. as well? We're going down a technological track here. I'd like to know a bit more about it, please.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. We do have our new libraries manager on site, but I'm not going to expect him to respond to that question. The hublets are specifically designed for children, so they are in a loading dock that's based on site. They actually can't be borrowed and taken off site, and they're preloaded. They have been hugely successful. In terms of your question about whether or not there's something in it for future or adult libraries, we do have our online collection as well. That certainly has been increasing in terms of range and the number of books that are available through that as well, and that's quite a popular service. I can provide some stats in the next report for that. Whether or not we hire out or lend out tablets, however, I can't answer that question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wasn't actually thinking along the lines of hiring them out as such, because one of the neat things about this is that this actually encourages visits to the library as well. I'm sure that your little monster is going to say, "Mum, can I go to the library today?" And it gets mum along, it gets dad along, brothers, sisters, or whoever. But if this is it's such growth that's been seen, I can't help but wonder if there are other opportunities to encourage more users other than this demographic, if you like. Available to who?
You also asked if they're available.
Yes, and then the Temuka libraries in the Geraldine. No, thanks, yeah.
I believe at this stage they're only available at the main library in town. That's certainly something that we could look at for the satellite sites as well, and our investment for that moving forward. We've definitely got an increased interest in our digital collections, so it would fall within that portfolio.
Okay, no further questions. Then we will receive and note the Community Services Update report. Thank you, Beth. I'm happy to move that. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Moving to 8.3. Are you just going to talk to this, Beth, or what's going to happen?
I would like to invite Matt Sisson, who's the Property Projects Officer, to speak to this report, please.
Afternoon, councillors. Pretty simple report this week, so I'll just take it as read and noted and take your questions.
G'day, Matt. Just on the report, it says project risk stress rod installation potential failure procedure and new design. Did that end up being a risk, or what happened there?
A microphone failure.
It is, they're just carrying that process out at the moment. They just started it this week. Because there's a lot of other works going around the building, it had to sequence in at the last point. I've been talking to the engineer about it. They've just notified us there could be a risk. We're basically one of those things. I've reported it over about 2 or 3 reports that we won't know until we finish the job.
Any idea of what sort of money would be involved if it there's a problem?
No idea at this stage, but
If I may, we have also been working quite closely with the engineers on this particular matter, and then canvassing the best options for the strengthening of the house gallery. We have good confidence that this is the best methodology for the particular build itself. The risk of failure is low.
Someone describe to a layman what that is, because I would have thought you would have done that sort of stuff before you did everything else.
Okay, so there's a design methodology they've used to strengthen the building, so plywood diaphragms under all the roofs and everything. On the north side, facing out into the garden, you'll notice there's a lot of windows, so it's kind of a weaker side of the building. So they've strengthened the back side and the Wadey Road side. That's where all the strong part is. Now what they're doing is basically squeezing that wall on the north side to drag so if something does happen, the movement comes back through the building. So it's just squeezing that wall in the weaker side of the building. The risks involved are more, from what I've heard from the engineer, is we're using epoxy glue to hold a rod into the foundation. The failure is it rips out. So then it would be a case of, right, how do we redesign that fixture to get it to hold in again? So not catastrophic failures, it's just probably a more time and money over a couple of weeks to redesign it and get it sorted if it failed.
I guess my point is though, Matt, we paid engineers at the start to do all this. We're about to finish painting, take all the scaffolding down, and we get to this. So what was the process that alerted them to this just as we were about to open the building?
This has been in the design right from the start. It's a sequencing issue that with all the scaffold around the building for the past 3 months, we haven't been able to physically get into these spots to do this work. So Farrells have sequenced this themselves. That's how they wanted to do it. Yeah, I can't speak much more to it than that.
And if I may add to that as well, so we meet on a regular basis as a project team with the engineers, and there is a risk assessment process that we go through at every single meeting to determine what is the best methodology moving forward. It is an old building, there will be flaws in there, we can't always anticipate what that is. There are always risks of potential failure, but we're comfortable with the risk management process that we've applied, that what we've chosen for this is the best way forward.
I think what Councillor Piddington and myself a little bit is this rod goes right through the wall from top to bottom. I presume it gets a bolt and it gets wound up to tighten the whole wall. I think both of us are trying to work out how the heck do you get the rod in there when the new roof's on and the walls are on. But anyway, that's for them to work out.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, they go from top to bottom, ceiling to, or roof to foundation. The 2 locations are stainless steel straps, because we couldn't feed the rod down between the double brick. The 3rd location is down between double brick, so effectively squeezing that wall together to strengthen it up.
If we look at the project budget, I was just questioning the 2 million spent today on project budget. Does that include the figure that we approved from the project reserve funds last 6 weeks ago?
No, it doesn't. So at the moment we're in consent phase of that, so there's no money been spent on that approval yet.
Okay, because if you add those two together, there's only 99,000 left, so of your total budget.
So the 2 million is the total budget we've spent to date. The 1.598 is what the contract with Farrells has been so far. So
and the total project budget is 3.7 million.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so $99,000 left. Is it?
I think that what they're saying is they've just shown us what the construction contract is, and it is part of the 2 million. Is that what you're telling us, Matt?
Yeah, the 1.5 is part of the 2.
Different to last month, okay. Okay, so have we tightened up those costs from last month, from the project reserve? They were all sort of indicative costs?
Two of those were actually quoted prices that we'd used, and we've been driving a few savings in it, so we're hoping to bring the price down even further.
Any further questions? Great. Happy to receive and note the progress report. Moved by Councillor Mayor Nigel, seconded by Councillor Oliver. I was going to call him something else too. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Okay, moving to 8.4, Egentire Art Gallery Collection Policy Update.
Kia ora koutou. I take the report as read and the attachments. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Cara. I guess I get the ethics of gifting and I get the whole report, but I think our question was a councillor's. We keep growing collections. I think Philip said less than 5%, say, of the museum is on display, so we need massive space. While we accept all these collections, at face value, there is a cost because we're out of storage. So I guess we were saying, is there a way to tweak the policy to ensure they are of real value to us? Because, you know, if I give a collection of 100 paintings, actually 6 of them relate to locals or of national significance and 90 aren't, but we get stuck with the other 90.
We do adhere to a strict collection policy which is attached, and we do itemise and value what is of national significance and local significance to us, not just of a financial measure, and if we can store it correctly, because we are also bound by our own ethics. If we can't store it in an ethical manner, we can't house it correctly. So we do decline works if we can't.
And if I may add, and through you, Madam Chair, as well, the purpose of this report is also was in response to what we understood the instruction to be from the last standing committee as well, which included a review of the policy, which we would table at the 8th of October meeting. So we have specifically requested if there is input or guidance that you would like us to take on board as part of that review, we can, keeping in mind that there are quite strict criteria around what we accept, what we don't, what we sell, if we would want to do that as well. So we're happy to open the floor to take on any of that feedback.
Just have a question about, and I know this was in the long-term plan and I did try to query it then as well, but why would we have an annual capital budget of 30,000 when we're only displaying 10% of our collection? Why would, and we keep receiving gifts, why do we need to buy any more?
That budget is a gifted bequest from multiple families, so it's not ratepayer money.
It wasn't clear and the report makes a huge difference. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, you've had the opportunity to review this yourself as well. You have. Okay, very good. I have a couple of points of questions here with regard to potentially tidying a couple of things up. A question first regarding ethics. Works will not be acquired with the intent of later selling, exchanging or otherwise disposing of them. To be frank, why not? If there is an investment opportunity, which perhaps you can see, why would you restrict yourself from the ability to invest in something that you know may provide a significant return to you in the future? And just the line underneath, the manager and staff will not acquire work for their personal collections which conflict with the gallery's collection policy. I don't really get that. For your personal collection, why would it matter what you have in your personal collection?
So in answer to the first question, if I may, Councillor Shannon, and through you, Madam Chair. So as mentioned previously, we are very much bound by the Museum's Aotearoa Code of Ethics. Specifically, there are instructions to the local body and relevant local authority managers. So that includes council, where this art gallery is part of one of our facilities. I will draw your attention to page 44, which is the ethics document, which is 1.1 point F, which talks about the collections being a crucial foundation of the museum or art gallery, and whether or not it's viewed as a financial asset, ensure that it never pledges mortgages or otherwise uses its collections as a security to raise funds or to finance operations. So we can't sell to finance operations, and we can't deaccession work as well as sell them if there is no strong policy framework or if it's against the advice of the professional staff. Any disposal or sale has to be in line with staff, donors and their descendants, and that all funds raised in the process of an appropriate deaccessioning are applied solely and unequivocally to the benefit of the collection itself. So we are quite constrained in what we can do, and that's instructions to the actual local governing body, which is the council.
Okay, get that. Thank you. Oh, Gary, you've got something.
Can I just be... It's quite restrictive, isn't it? So, like, so if your donors give you the money, you buy a piece of art, and then in 5 years it's tripled in value, and you need to build a new art gallery, you flick it, you top up the donors' money again and you use the residual to build your gallery. I don't see why we'd be restricted like this. It's just quite bizarre.
We're also bound by legal wishes of the people who do gift the work. 95% of the collection.
I'm talking about ones.
The majority of our funds are gifted, though, with clauses on what to buy for the collection.
Yeah.
Because it's their money.
Yeah, so there's constraints around what we can do with the bequest funds themselves, and also, unfortunately, this is the world of local government, which means we're constrained by regulations all the time. This is case in point.
Aren't you, though? Right. Another wording thing on page number 34. No item can be obtained by any person or member of his/her family who is associated with the gallery or council. I think that's way too tight. And I think there are two different groups of people, those associated with the gallery or associated with Timaru District Council. So where it says the sale of such works will not be of personal benefit to employees, volunteers of the gallery, yep, totally get that. Relevant external advisors or any other parties with a declared interest in the gallery, get that. But to say that nobody or family member who is associated with the gallery or council can buy one of those items, to me, is much too tight, especially if, for example, you can include some sort of rule whereby it can be signed off by the chief executive. That would be fine by me, but to say that associated with this whole office or the gallery, too tight.
Are you proposing to buy one? Would you like to buy an artwork, Councillor?
Don't have enough money, but I would love to.
Sorry, I was being facetious. If you are suggesting that we take into account those considerations as part of the policy review, we will take that on board. If there's a reason that we can't bend on that one, we will include that as part of the paper that comes up with the policy review itself. Cara, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I believe that clauses in there just for protection and insider trading and things like that. It might be too strict. Yes, we can review.
Yeah, it's the wording of it, isn't it? But see, there may well be opportunities when you decided that you're going to divest something, that those who are loosely associated with the library may be willing to, say, pay the same market value anybody else would. And if it was able to be signed off at chief executive level, for example, I personally would be happy with that. So it does need to be reviewed.
Seldom do we sell collection works when we de-ascension. If we go along that, and the majority of the collection is donated by donors, we normally approach the family, and if we can't get a contact there, then we normally offer to sister institutions to keep it in there. So there's normally, it's not a financial gain, it's more seen as a cultural and social asset. Works acquired by state-owned entities remain accessible to the public rather being sold off. So that's to prevent a loss of history there and to keep cultural assets to public and prevent privatisation.
Yep, get that. I do get that. But if it gets to that point, that needs to be tidied up.
Thinking, obviously, we've obviously had quite a few bequests now, which have been subject to these, the policy and the conditions upon they bequeath the artwork. But really, now's probably the time. Anything, we should be probably changing that agreement now in order to make it quite clear to the people that potentially that they could be potentially moved on if they were not perceived to need to be made, or duplication for whatever reason. So it's really at the time of the bequeath, that's when that agreement should be made quite clear and changed to enable us a little bit more flexibility. And certainly that could be driven around the level of significance of that piece of art. And so as there might be A, B, C, and an A piece of art is something that we would hold and continue to hold and give them the assurance that it won't go anywhere. But a C could be something that could be, if it's not perceived relevant to the collection and the overall picture for the art gallery, that it could be moved on and monetarised. So really that's probably changes do need to be made because and it really just starts with that agreement, quite frankly.
So when we do receive a gift, we do have clauses about what we will do if we do no longer require the work. I can't recall off the top of my head what the actual wording is, but I can follow that up for you. Bequests are evaluated on their alignment with our gallery mission and our collection, which is our collection policy. So it includes considering the relevance of the artwork to our region and our values, its historical and cultural significance, and also practical concerns like storage. And if we can look after it well, like if it's in poor condition, it will not be accepted because of the ongoing costs to preserve the work. If a bequest does not meet the criteria, we do not accept, and we refer to other avenues for that person to go down. The two bequests that I know of have been agreed to back in 1980, and the one I think was in early 2010, before my time. We have been in close contact with those people. They're not quite in our collection yet because they are still living with them. So we do evaluate and know what's coming our way and reassess.
If I may interject there as well, Councillor Booth. So the criteria associated that we currently have in place with accepting any bequests themselves is associated, to just add to Kara's point, around local production. So whether they have resided in the districts themselves or within the wider region, if it has permanence and doesn't require extensive conservation, so that limits how many additional resources need to go into its preservation. Whether it's got cultural significance and falls within the objectives and values of the gallery. If you've got suggestions around specifically what else you would like us to include, that would be helpful. If you think you could narrow it down further.
Comes down to just the changing of the agreement, any bequests that they're made aware, because we can't just carry on the same old thing. It's just probably started with nothing, and now we've got, I'm not sure what's the capital value of our collection at the moment?
Allowed to disclose that? Pardon?
Sorry, it's not public knowledge, and so I wouldn't advise that we disclose that in public.
According to the Sunday Star Times, it was about the fourth most expensive collection in the country.
I think that's irrelevant. I think this is just about an ongoing problem that is going to get worse and worse and worse of how do we store all of this. And, you know, from the report, and this is 8 years old already, with 1,500 pieces and only 10% on display. And so I'm guessing that number's growing and the percentage on display has got less. And how do we plan for the future if we just keep getting more and more? That's my biggest concern. I'm not worried about having a fire sale and funding a swimming pool. I'm worried about the ongoing issue of finding storage and the cost of that storage if we just keep growing our collection.
So with the storage issue, it has been in previous long-term plans, and there was capital funds attributed to extend the storage, I think back in the 2016-17 financial year. Those monies were absorbed into the earthquake strengthening budget for the House. So there's also been provisions there. And
if I may add to that as well, thank you, Kara. So there was a paper that came up in July. It was actually nested within the operational plan for the Theatre Royal and facility. On that document listed all of the spatial requirements for the museum, the art gallery and the libraries. As part of that proposal was a suggestion that we would find an alternative off-site storage location for all of those rather than having 3 separate sites.
I agree with that. but how long does that last us? You know, like this is just going to be a problem that never goes away. Like we'll fill that storage and then we need more and we need more and we need more. And so I think that's what Councillor Booth's trying to get at, is how do we ensure that this is just like how long's a piece of string? We're never going to, you know, we're always going to be building storage.
I'm quite new to a lot of this. So Museums Aotearoa is a member organisation, and do all museums and art galleries belong to it? Because while they've got a code of ethics and professional practice and so forth, you can deviate from that because they are a member organisation. So maybe there is opportunity there to think more holistically in terms of some of the issues we're facing.
It just puts another reputational risk to us as a council and also to staff's reputation, I suppose.
I follow on from the CE and Alan though. Well, it's all very well to say that we've got storage in the long-term plan, but it changes. And I'm like you, it's not legislated, it's just a group we've joined. And point 18 says the gallery's current policy prohibits sales of works. Change the policy.
So thank you, that's a valid piece of advice. As I mentioned, if I go back to the original intention of this document was to seek your input. So if you would like us to change it, any practical or constructive advice is highly welcome. So we can have a look and review specifically the sale of artworks. If you would like us to cap the number of or the quantum of works that we collect, then please advise us to do so. We can put that in a proposal as well. And at the end of the day, one of the other considerations around storage will need to be considered more broadly in terms of what council assets are available.
I agree with Councillor Pye. I mean, it can go on forever and a day, but you know, lots of people want to leave us art, but let's encourage some money to come with it as well that can help fund the storage, because that's one of the problems, isn't it? Everyone's got these marvellous collections that have value to them, and I'm not going to agree or disagree. It's in the eye of the beholder with a lot of these things, whether it's a museum item or art. But I think those conversations around actually some cash to support, those bequests would be really of value into the future. But I think this is a pretty valuable conversation. So.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think, look, I understand if we get bequests, we've got to look after it. And if we get cash to then buy art, to me that's completely different. And if that cash is free of any sort of encumbrances, then we need to think about what's our best way to do that, because that could become the very vehicle we need to actually help us to actually put the facilities in place and keep the costs to ratepayers at a reasonable rate. The worst thing we can do is accept a donation, know damn well we can't look after it. So that's where I think we've got to get that balance right between the two. And I think we do get cash bequests. You are buying art with it, if it's, which is the right thing to do. But if that is unencumbered, we should really be thinking hard about how do we manage that.
Absolutely, I would agree with that through you, Madam Chair, as well. Oftentimes, it's very rarely that we get unencumbered bequests. It's the same with the museum, and any bequest that we get with council, it's pretty restrictive, but we can certainly consider that. I also, to your earlier point around the member organisation of the Museums Aotearoa, I think it would be not a wise look for council to be essentially diverting from that body as a best practice institution. However, we will exercise whatever flexibility we can when we're considering the policy review.
I'd actually like to, investigate Councillor Booth's idea of, rating them, because everything painted in South Canterbury will be part of the social fabric here. So, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but our policy has painted us into a corner that we can't afford.
We are currently in the process of making a collection of significance document to outline the significance of our collection. Just so you know, our permanent collection has a 114-year life. So it's existed before the existence of the Egantai Art Gallery in 1956. It started accumulating in 1910. James Craigie, the predecessor mayor, has gifted probably the most significant work in the collection, which has the highest financial cost. So I'm happy also to give you all a tour and talk through the collection at any time.
And one last point, if I may, as well. So as part of this review, Cara and I have considered alternative options for increasing revenue, which might be increasing our commission prices as well. What else did we speak about yesterday? It was... Oh yeah, events and charging for access, particularly for out of as well, who might be attending. So attributing a cost to that potentially as well.
Venue hire for potentially with the house gallery opening. It could be a wedding venue event, murder mysteries, things like that.
Okay, any further questions? So one, just Beth, around that storage. What's the plan there? Are you preparing a report, or is that, what's the game plan there?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, I'm more than happy to circulate that document again. One of the items that came up for discussion at last council meetings, which was the underutilised asset on Butler Street, was specifically one of the potential options for that. We won't enter that discussion at the moment, but I would consider putting together a paper for your consideration for what those storage requirements will be as well.
And feedback to Beth on the policy is required. So is it okay, Beth, if they just direct that to you personally? And also, I think we just need some clarity around point 6 and 7. It does talk about purchasing, purchase with funds that have been gifted to the gallery. So that was the one point, Karen. And then in the next one, it talks about that we have an annual capital budget of $30,000 per annum. Is also reserved for purchases of works which have been approved by the LTP. So I think there's two different things there. So I think there needs to just be a little bit of clarity on that too. So if there's no further questions, we will receive and note the Egantai Art Gallery Collection Policy Update Report, and we will also provide the and point 2, provide feedback to the officers in consideration of the revision of the policy and criteria. Councillor Shannon will move that, and seconded by Mayor Nigel. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Okay, moving, no urgent business items, minor nature matters. So we'll now move to exclusion of the public. Thank you. Councillor Pye, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, call this meeting the Commercial and Strategy Committee meeting to task here. Like to firstly welcome along Gay Broker from Temuka, Ross Monroe, Pleasant Point, and Shane Manure from Geraldine Community Boards. Apologies, we have Peter Burt, Councillor Peter Burt. Oh yeah, okay, we'll move that. Oh yeah. Move the apologies, got that? Yep. Okay, thank you. All in favour, say aye. Aye. Identification of items of urgent business. Any? Any matters of minor nature?
Yeah, just want an update. I understand the stadium RFP went out, but then it got pulled back in because there was something needed to be changed. So just some clarity around that.
That now?
Like? Yeah.
Okay, so the RFP's out in the market. When we appointed our assessors, one assessor did point out that the scoring was not clear on the actual design. We had a lot around their capability, their capacity to do it, but actually the design didn't have sufficient pointing in it. So we have adjusted the score that the design now has a percentage in it, and that's gone out to everyone that picked up the documents, and that has been loaded on Gets. So to make it very clear, the scoring sheet for each option has been clarified to include that. It was pointed out by one of the potential assessors, if you just went on capacity and capability, you could have a concrete floor because the design. So the actual requirements for the design are in the document, but when it comes to the scoring, the actual design needed to have some percentage points.
Is that not a concern? We can't get something simple like that right?
Well, it went through a number of different eyes and we all missed it. So we've got it right now.
I don't know that I accept that really. I rely on yourself and the experts we have to get those things right. You know, on a $20 million project.
Yeah, it's been corrected now, so it's fine. It was picked up internally.
How long after it had been released?
Can't tell you that. It was probably only a week or two. Yeah.
Okay. Who's in charge of charging these things? Okay. Are you happy with that, Councillor Piddington? Not really, but okay. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Are there any? No. Okay. Chairman's report. Wow. I've been quite busy. Various meetings, including workshops. Went to our BEA the other night. It was Business Excellence Awards, which was a very good night. Just the week prior, been up to the LNG, Local Government New Zealand Annual Conference, the super local they called it, which was quite interesting, and it was worthwhile. So that's what I've been up to. Confirmation of the minutes, item 7.1. You what?
Need to move and second your report.
Oh, okay. Oh, who'd like to second or move? You? Okay. Thank you. Let's move to the minutes.
just on the minutes at note number 4, it talks about the road stopping closure costs, and there was confusion at the last meeting, and I don't think we've captured that right. What that was about was who paid for the costs of closing that road permanently. It wasn't about temporary traffic management at all. The question, and this is around the Mitre 10 building, so just we haven't captured that correctly in the minutes.
So what would you like changed?
Just that the road stopping and closure costs, so we need to take out the reference to temporary traffic management. It wasn't about that, it was a permanent road closure. And the question was who paid the costs of closing that road permanently. And I think Mr Dixon gave us an answer at the time, I can't remember what it was, but it's got nothing to do with temporary traffic management.
Yes, and just to clarify, can we take out road closure because the process is actually a road stopping? It's legal progress.
And can you remind us who paid for it while you're here? Because
The developer paid Mitre 10.
You happy? Okay. Would someone like to move okay, Councillor Pye to move. Who's seconding? Stacey. Councillor Scott. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Okay. Reports.
Sorry, apologies everyone. I did have another minor matter. It's round, we're past 31 July. We haven't seen any accounts for this financial year. I thought we were going to get them quickly and regularly, and it looks to me we're going to get them in the middle of it's just taking too long. If we're serious about looking after budgets and what we're spending, we need the financial reports as soon as they are produced. Be it by email to us is fine, but I have no idea 2 months into the year how much we've spent, and I just don't think it's good enough.
We're only 1 month in, till the 27th of August. It's only July.
So an update on the financials for July. There is a lot of work at the beginning of the year that goes into getting those financials and the budgets phased so that they actually mean something. So just in context, there's 1,870 lines per month of the budget that needs to be phased to make sure that actually, because one of the comments from last year was actually making sure that the phasing was correct. Being the beginning of the financial year, there's a lot of transactions that happen at the end of the financial year, and so it takes time to work through those because they will essentially be accruals that will then get reversed in July. So some of those accruals we're still doing, so they will impact on the July results. So the decision was made that instead of giving information for July that potentially could change as part of the year-end process, that we would look to do a July-August combination.
Councillor Scott.
And sorry, through you, Mr Chair, we're looking for the calendar next year to try and line, if possible, council meetings to so the reports can come in a timely manner. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Bowen. That takes us to reports. Action.
So, just for clarity, going forward, when a month ends, once we get through all this, the accruals, how long do we have to wait to get those variances each month?
Ideally, in a perfect world, within 10 business days.
I'm pleased you said that, because I was thinking exactly the same thing.
So that is our aim. And if there is not a meeting, then the intention is to email when they're available. Then, feel free to ask any questions and the managers can essentially answer those for you. Yeah.
So to the CE, is our system not good enough? I mean...
Yes, you probably should put that question to the CFO. We did have a discussion last week around the inadequacies of our system. I would suggest it isn't good enough. Do you want to add to that?
Just the process that we actually have to go through. The current system you process, but the reporting of it is not very good. So you've asked numerous times, what's this, business unit doing? How's it going? I can't push a button and go, here it is. This is what it looks like. A typical month end for us is we will close our payables, our receivables. We will then reach out to the departments for any accruals that may or may not have been processed. They then get processed as journals. They're then extracted into a database, which then is imported into a Microsoft Excel template. Then we can see what each activity looks like, and then from that it's a little, there might be a few things that actually, hang on a minute, we've forgotten this, we've done that. So we go back to the other system, make any changes, refresh the database, refresh the template, then push it out to the managers for variance analysis, because finance actually don't spend the money. So we then have to push it back to them for their feedback to be able to then write the commentary that goes against the reports, then write the report and deliver it to you guys. So it's not a simple process. It's not like a Xero where I can push a button once everything's processed and it's all there. So part of the next year will be to look at what can we do or what is out there that could potentially make that process more efficient. Yeah.
I guess without reinventing and going to whoever, there must be some councils that are ahead of us that we could talk to, surely. So, I mean, it's not at you, Andrea, or anything, but it's confidence going forward in a financial system that's accurate and timely.
I guess with council, because our system essentially touches majority of the organisation. So it's not just used for finances, it's used for the registrations, it's used for the rates, it's used for the work orders, it's used for everything that we essentially do. So it's not as simple just to go, well, hey, hang on a minute, let's put finances here, when we actually talk to a lot of those programs as well. So it's not simple, yeah.
When I was in the health system, we did replace one of our systems at Nelson Marlborough for one that's used in council, and that went swimmingly well. Then the health sector decided in their wisdom to go to one system, just one system, exactly the same problems as we've got. The system does all your payments and things ready, has absolutely terrible reporting, and unfortunately they didn't put one reporting system over the top, there's multiple. So with some of these systems, you're best to go and find a best-of-breed reporting that's easy to use and get that going, but we'll discuss that further.
When we've got some budget.
Yeah,
Through you, Mr. Chair, it drives me mad too. It drives me absolutely crazy.
Information is power, so, yeah. Okay, so go to reports. 8.1 actions register update. I just see in the previous minutes that the following actions to be closed out: rates, penalties, capital projects and forecasting management plan, but they're actually still here. Is that?
That was just an oversight that they didn't get removed from this report before it was done, so they are to be removed.
I'm not sure I agree with the management plan for the reserve at the Rangitata Huts to be completed. It's not started, or yeah, that definitely hasn't been completed, and I'd like to see it remain on the action register until it is completed. And if anyone's able to give us an update on where we're at with it, would be good too, because the last thing, we had a meeting back in May and thought we were going to have something out very promptly after that, and I'm not sure we have.
Who's?
And we were told it's a 4-month process, and that's why we were hoping May would be the start of it. So we're going to bump into Christmas at this rate.
Yeah, well, we have, through you, Chair, we're managing the variation to the reserve management plan on that. There is some correspondence to go out to the hut owners and also the wider public in regard to what those changes are for a consultation process. We'll follow up with my parks manager on where that's at.
And can we get a timeline around that? Because we were told back in May, I feel like we met earlier than that. It was a 4-month process, and we were like, well, let's notify now. So the process has started, and we still don't have a defined timeline around it. Was it? Yeah, okay. There you go. Yeah, so knocking into Christmas is going to be less than ideal, and there's going to be a lot of interested parties, as we know, in this space. So if we can, with that correspondence, put a timeline out as well.
We'll get that correspondence out soon. It has been a resourcing issue, I have to confess. You know, we have, of course, gearing up our in-house parts unit, and that has taken up a lot of resourcing within that team.
The problem that we have with this is, because we met with some of these ones back in, oh gosh, was it, yeah. Oh, yeah, right, okay. Yeah, back in March, and when we're talking to members of the public around, hey, we're moving forward on the management plan, and then we get held up. It's just, you know, we're promising one thing and delivering something quite different. So I think we need, if there is in-house resourcing issues and different priorities, and I get that the in-house stuff, that's really important, but let's be, we just need to be cognizant of the fact.
Yeah, I agree. Look, this was put on there in April. We were meant to have it done by May, so we'll SLT have a discussion and see if we can put some resource onto it.
Okay, thank you. There is a couple here, road stopping closure costs. It's probably Scotty's pet thing here at the moment, by the sound of it, but yeah, is there any update on that?
We have reported on that previously, that they're at a higher level for what the road closure costs that we know of in regard to temporary traffic management. And not all the time in contracts is it clearly identified what those costs are. And so it's very hard to go back retrospectively to actually determine that. If it's a lump sum for establishment, which includes traffic management, then we do not know how much those costs are. Having said that, moving forward, we will be identifying those costs because it's now a requirement by the Minister of Transport that we report those costs to him. And I think this is around the code revision. So he has taken up the charge, and yeah, he did listen to you, Councillor Shannon.
Thank you, Andrew. And the last one here, Prime Port Grant, I see Councillor Piddington has requested some information around that.
So I've contacted Prime Port, and the grant that we gave to Prime Port has been spent on what it was given to them for, plus they've also put their own capital funding into that. The work has all been completed for that site to enable that project to have proceeded.
I assume that was to do with the Scott Base coming to.
Correct.
So perhaps in future, before we fire things up, we should make sure we've got a signed agreement that they're actually going to do something next time. Okay. Is there, okay, well, the actions register update, so do I need to move that? No? Yeah, okay. Mayor Nigel, Councillor Sally. Okay. Consideration of urgent business items, there were none. Consideration of minor nature, there were none. Exclusion of the public. Do we have to go to exclude the public for something, do we? Okay. Yeah, seconded. Exclusion of the public. Thank you. The public. Move and okay, well that's the end of that meeting. Thank you.